So guys, here we have got the wallpaper down and we have a socket here. Make sure you switch it off. Give it a good clean around it before you start. Make sure there's no dust. So what you need to do is make sure you get the top edge in. You just need to hold the paper out. Make sure the top edge is in. Now this is one way of doing a socket. There are other ways. There's another way that I use which requires you to remove screws and take the plate off. So what we're doing is feeling for the edges. So there's the corner there. Just going to put a mark there. Put a mark there where that corner is. What we're basically doing is reducing how much wallpaper we have around the socket area. So you do basically, you can just make a little hole in the thing. So just going to join some dots up with the marks like that. This is just giving me a rough idea now. These are just ordinary household scissors. So I punch my way in and cut to where the marks are, like that. Hope you can see this on the camera, clear. And again, you need to try and leave some excess around the edges so that you can just, it needs a little bit more. Now, one thing you can do is just feather it in with your knife. Take your time, don't rush. It's about pace, not race. So I'm just pushing slightly in with my finger there. And you see I'm slowly edging it in. Again there, just to make sure there's a little bit over. Right, so all I'm doing is using the knife to make little, we can cut away like the wallpaper a little bit now, so it just makes it easier to work with. Putting little nicks in here and there so that it folds around. So there we have the top edge in. I'm just using my fingernails to run that in, and now I'm bringing it around the edge. Never get your edges butt up at that side first and try this. Always get your socket sorted and then in. Like I say, if you've left enough excess there, you'll have enough to slide it across, because you're never going to get that butt joint there perfect. Now sometimes, depending on what paper you're using, it will tear. I mean, unavoidably, depends what your customer's bought. So I'm just running the knife on the bottom there, cut it away. Like that. Now, if you've got one of these, just place it on top, and then knife across the top. Should come away, slide away. Do the same on the edges. notice there it's just ripped slightly around the corner. Again, you just need to nick it, push the paper back in, it's underneath, not very noticeable. There we go. Now, it's a little bit of there, that's got some sort of filler, so it must have been corked in with something. There's a lot of paint, excess paint on, so this will just scratch off. Get rid of some of the paint anyway. Once you've done that, give it a good wipe, because what you don't want is the paste going into that. If people plug anything in, it's just going to blow up because it is water based. It's one of the reasons why you've got to be confident if you want to take the plate off. You've got to remember you're using something that's water based in paste, and it can trip the fuses, and if they've got kids in the house that are on the internet, you will know about it, because the first thing they will do is tell everybody that the internet is down because the power's gone off. Electrics nowadays are very sensitive, so you know you have to be confident enough to do it. Basically, now that is possibly the most difficult way of cutting around the socket, if I'm honest with you, because it's all about getting your edges right, and this socket was not that greatly fitted to start with. It's slightly, that's why I was able to run the knife along the bottom, because there's a gap at the bottom here, so I've basically took the paper underneath the gap. But I've left a little bit of a lip on the paper here, because like I say, it's been filled in with something. It's causing the knife a little bit of running out, so we're just compromising a bit there. And then just cut the rest of the wallpaper down. So that's the first way of doing the socket. Now we have another one over there, so don't you worry if you want to know how to do the other one. Make sure the camera doesn't fall off. You can just about see it there. Now that's another socket, so I'll do that one the other way, so you have a full understanding of how to do the sockets. So I've got the camera to the other side of the room, and as you can see I've already hung the wallpaper down, and we're going to do the same thing again. Find the top of the socket, running it in with my fingers again, making sure it's nice and tight at the top there, and then I need to do the bottom edge of this where I've folded it over at the bottom as well, just holding the paper steady so I don't rip it. Once I've got the bottom unfolded, can start marking the socket out. So using my propelling pencil, I'm just finding the corners of the socket, putting a little mark on with my pencil. You do all four corners, and then I just need to run a straight edge. I'm just using the blade again, nothing special. I just need to get a mark on the paper so I know where to cut. Once you've done that, it's just a case of getting a pair of scissors or shears, whatever you want to use. I'm using a pair of scissors because it's got a nice sharp point at the end, and being a little bit smaller, it's better for doing the intricate cutting. And all I'm doing is cutting into the corners again, like I did on the previous socket, making sure that I'm not quite going up to the mark, but I need to leave a little bit on so I can just nick it with a knife when I'm going around the socket, because I want to leave some excess paper on when I tuck it behind the socket, because I'm going to loosen the socket in a minute, so we can tuck the paper behind the socket. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put the paper up out of the way. Now this is just basically holding it out of the way with the wallpaper paste that's on the paper. Now this will clean off, it's a vinyl wallpaper, so it won't really make much difference. So I'm using an insulated screwdriver, that's very important. Socket is turned off. And I'm just going to loosen the socket just enough to get the paper behind. Now sometimes the screws will come completely out because they won't be long enough, and it will depend on what the electrician's done on how far he's put the back box in, but this should just come out just enough. There you see me pulling it off the wall, making sure there's nothing behind it holding it in, because sometimes they're corked in and all sorts, so they're difficult to get off. What I'm going to do is I'm going to again find the edges with my fingers and putting little nicks into the corners so I can get it around the socket. What I'll need to do then is cut off the excess. Now I could use the knife for this, I'm going to use the scissors. It's just a case of trimming off just enough that you've got enough left to play with, because it's better to have more left than not enough. See, all I'm doing is I'm massaging the paper around the socket, making sure that I've got enough paper to trim off, and again just putting little nicks in it in the corners just to get it easy over the socket, and cutting off what I need so I've got more room to work. You can see I'm starting to tuck it around the gap in the socket as well. Don't worry about like little creases as well in the thing. You can get these out once the socket's been sorted. You see me tucking it in at the edge there, just using my fingernails, nothing special. You don't want to push your fingers all the way into the socket, it's electric. You might electrocute yourself, not unless you turn them off completely. But even so, you can still trip the main switch in the consumer unit, even though you might have turned the sockets off. They're very sensitive. And you see I'm tucking it in to the edges, making sure it's gone behind the socket, and doing the top edge there. Again, I'm just putting little nicks in to make sure that I'm not tearing the paper. This will effectively, if you go too far in the corners, it will effectively create a splice, which is a joint that you can't see in wallpaper. It's not very noticeable unless you get really close with a magnifying glass. You see I'm changing the blade already, and then we're just going to cut the bottom edge off. And now you could use the straight edge to do this for cutting, but because the socket is loose you can't get any pressure on it because the socket is loose. So you're just cutting enough off so you can tuck it behind the socket. Again, being careful you're not running your fingers in behind the socket too much. Again, I'm using my knife there just to give it a little nick, cutting off bits of paper where needed, and then it's just a case of tucking it in, smoothing off where you need to. Use your blade to give it a final tuck into the edge there. One thing the socket will do, it will hold the paper in place now as well, because sometimes it does tendency to peel off with the heat from various charges that you might use for doing your phone. Once you're satisfied you've done it and you've got the paper behind you, it's just a case of tightening it up again. Now it should go back into the place. There are slight adjustments on the plate of the socket. If you need to make any adjustments, you could put a level on it to make sure it's level. This one wasn't fitted greatly in the first place like the previous one, so we're just going to put it back how it was. get a good wipe again, make sure all the paste is off it. You don't want that getting into the sockets, because like I said, it is electricity and water and electric don't mix. I'm just using a sponge there to wipe off any excess paste and also stretch it out a bit more if I need to. And then with the straight edge, just cut off the bottom on the skirting. And there you go. That's 2 ways of papering around a socket. Again, just wiping off any excess, pushing the edges in to make a nice butt joint against the other paper, wiping the paste off the skirting board, and there you go. That's how you get your paper around a socket. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed that video and got something out of it. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to check out any links in the description. Thanks for watching once again. See you in another video soon. Handy Andy signing out for now.